Have you ever wondered how a single island nation could end up with a legal system that's been shaped by ancient kings, and not one, not two, but three different European empires? Well, today we're grabbing our shovels and brushes because we're going on a legal archaeology dig. We're going to uncover the incredible story behind Sri Lanka's uniquely layered laws.
So, this is the big question, right? This is the puzzle we're here to solve. How on earth did one country end up with a legal system influenced by so many different sources? It's a fascinating story, and we're about to piece it all together.
You know, the simple answer is that this didn't happen overnight. Think of it less like a blueprint and more like a geological formation. It was built layer by layer over centuries. Each new power that came along just added their own layer on top of what was already there. So let's start digging down to the very first one. Okay, so here's our map for the dig site. These four periods are the key archaeological layers we need to understand. You've got the pre-colonial era, then the Portuguese, the Dutch, and finally the British. Each one left a distinct, permanent mark, and if we want to get the full picture, we have to look at all of them. So let's start at the very bottom.
So our story begins long before any European ships appeared on the horizon. We're talking about the era of the Sinhalese kings, going all the way back to the 3rd century BC. This period was defined by an absolute monarchy, and its laws, well, they formed the bedrock, the foundation for everything that came after.
But here's the first mystery we encounter on our dig. Unlike, say, the Romans with their 12 tables, there are almost no written legal codes from this time. As the legal scholar L.J.M. Corey points out, the law wasn't really systematized in a way that we'd recognize today. It was mostly custom, tradition, passed down from generation to generation.
Which, brings up a pretty obvious question. If nothing was written down, how do we know any of this for sure? Are we just guessing?
Well, here's the fascinating part. The best proof we have actually comes from the invaders themselves. The Portuguese, the Dutch, the British, they all created official documents recognizing the local laws they found. You can see it right here. The Portuguese promised to uphold them, the Dutch governor literally sent a list of questions to Kandyan priests to understand their customs, and the British did the same. The Dutch even went so far as to compile the Tamil customs in Jaffna into a written code. These documents are our smoking gun.
Now, when the Portuguese arrive in 1505, it's a massive turning point. But, and this is key, they didn't show up with a plan to impose their own legal system. They were there for one reason: trade. Spices, gems, you name it. And that single goal shaped their entire approach to the island.
And you can see the fundamental difference right here. The Portuguese, since they were focused on commerce, didn't really bother with the law. They just kind of let the old customs wither. But the Dutch, the Dutch were playing a totally different game. They were builders, they were administrators, and they showed up with a blueprint. Let's see what they made.
Yeah, the Dutch were a whole different ballgame. They weren't just traders, they were systematic colonizers. And when they got control of the coastal areas, they brought this incredibly organized, bureaucratic mindset with them, and they applied it straight to the law.
I mean, just look at this. They set up a crystal clear, top-down chain of command. Power flowed all the way from the government in the Netherlands, through the giant East India Company, down to the regional governor in Batavia, and then finally to the local governor of Ceylon. This was formal, it was organized, and it was a world away from what existed before. And they applied that exact same logic to the courts. For the very first time, the island had a proper judicial hierarchy. You'd start in a local court, the Landraden. If you wanted to appeal, you could go up to a regional high court. Then the main high court in Colombo, and if you really wanted to, you can appeal one last time all the way to the high court in Batavia. This was the blueprint for a modern legal system.
But see, they didn't just build the structures. They brought a whole new legal operating system to fill them. They introduced what's known as Roman Dutch law, a really sophisticated European system that blended ancient Roman principles with Dutch customs. This became the new general law of the land in the areas they controlled.
So, on to the next layer. The British arrive in 1796, and they don't find an empty island. They inherit this super complex system the Dutch built, which itself was sitting on top of all those ancient local customs. For the British, it was a real legal puzzle. What do you do with all this?
And their first problem was just figuring out what the rules even were. Imagine you're trying to take over, and the old management isn't just uncooperative, they're actively hostile. Dutch officials and judges refused to work for them. Legal records went missing, maybe even destroyed on purpose. The British were basically flying blind.
So, what do? You play for time. They made a really practical call with their proclamation of 1799. It basically said, okay, everybody calm down. For now, everything stays the same. We'll keep using the Dutch laws and local customs. But this was just supposed to be a temporary fix while they worked out their real plan.
But then, something amazing happened. Their long-term strategy was more or less decided for them by a landmark court case way back in Britain. The case Campbell v. Hall established a core principle for the entire British Empire. When you conquer a territory, you can't just throw out all its laws. You have to keep the existing system going.
And that became the playbook. Since Sri Lanka clearly wasn't uninhabited, the British were legally bound to preserve the system they found. So they kept the Roman Dutch law and the local customs. They would only add their own English common law on top in specific areas where new laws were needed. And that single decision, the decision to preserve rather than replace, is what created the incredible legal tapestry we see today. It basically fossilized all the previous layers, locking them into place forever.
So when you look at this, you're not just seeing a chart, you're seeing the cross-section of our archaeological dig. At the bottom, you have the foundation of unwritten ancient custom. Then, the Dutch come and build a formal, systematic structure on top of it with Roman Dutch law. And finally, the British arrive and add their own layer of English common law while carefully preserving everything underneath. It's a living museum of legal history, all on one island.
And that really leaves us with this one big final question to think about. What does it actually mean for a modern country to operate with a legal system that isn't one single thing, but this intricate blend of ancient tradition, Dutch logic, and British principles? It's a testament to an incredibly complex history, and it's something that continues to shape the identity of Sri Lanka to this day.